Okay, I think we're about ready. If you don't mind, I'm just going to read from what Eileen had written for our advertisement because there's no way that I could remember all of this.
Oh,
so
it's a long biography.
I'd like to introduce Michael Gabriele. Michael is a lifelong Garden State resident and graduate of Montclair State University. He's worked as a journalist, a writer, freelance writer, and author for more than 40 years. In addition to writing 5 books on New Jersey history, all published by Arcadia Publishing, Michael is deeply engaged in our state's cultural and historical community. He serves on the Board of Trustees for the New Jersey Folk Festival at Rutgers University and is a member of the Executive Board for Allied Artists of America, the Nutley Historical Society, and the Theater League of Clifton. I know where Clifton is.
Yeah.
I do.
It's way up there.
I used to live in Oakland, New Jersey.
Okay.
He also serves on the advisory board of the Clifton Arts Center. So tonight Michael is going to talk to us about Colonial Taverns of New Jersey. And you may say, how does that relate to Hamilton? But taverns were an incredibly important thing in colonial history. Traveling between one area to another area, especially here, South Jersey, with all of the bogs and everything else, it was very difficult getting around. And if you didn't have a place to stay, then you were just kind of out of luck. So it obviously was an important thing for us. His book, Colonial Taverns of New Jersey, Libations, Liberty, and Revolution, and I'm sure he'll talk to us about that. He has that book here along with several others for sale and for signing afterwards. So I give you to Michael, and thank you for coming. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. We met last year at Batstow Village. There was what was the celebration that was going on? A lot of people.
Yeah.
And I got invited again next year too. So hello everybody. This is a nice crowd. Thank you for all for coming out. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of the Pine Barrens, a sacred place in New Jersey. A big fan of Batstow Village. Yes, I live way up on exit 153 on the Parkway in Clifton. Actually, it's a sprawling suburb. We have 90,000 people that live in Clifton.
Wow.
We speak 70 languages. The mayor is very, very proud of that. So,
Wow.
talk about a diverse suburb. Holy moly. So anyway, I am an author with the History Press. I've been writing books for them for over 15 years. All about New Jersey, that's all I write about. And my most recent book, which came out in 2023, Colonial Taverns of New Jersey. So I'm on tour now, so very happy to be doing this and very proud to be an author with the History Press. We should state right up front, just in case there's any doubt, New Jersey was the crossroads of the Revolution. Right here in New Jersey, not in Williamsburg, Virginia, not any of these other places. This is where many or the most important battles were fought. The Battle of Springfield, the Battle of Princeton, Trenton, the Battle of Monmouth. This is where George Washington spent most of his time. He's an honorary Jersey guy, I think we can say that. Taverns were very important back in the colonial period. As a matter of fact, each village, at least all the ones that I did research on, they sort of mandated that you had to have a tavern because they realized early on, New Jersey, we've always been the corridor state, right? New York, Philadelphia, you gotta go through New Jersey to get to wherever you wanna go. So they realized that for business purposes, but also to help manage the traffic flow, villages needed a tavern because it was an arduous 3-day journey from New York to Philly or back up the same way. The so-called colonial highways were mud and rock roads. 3 days, you needed a place to stop and get a drink, get something to eat. take care of the horses, right? You need to take care of the horses. Sometimes spend the night. You could get a nice comfortable piece of floor anytime you wanted to. And so taverns, just on a very basic level, they were a hospitality business, right? Like today's Westins and Marriotts and Holiday Inns, a hospitality business. They help people who are traveling on the road. And they also provide hospitality for the villages where they were. I got the idea for this book, quite unlikely. I had done another book on folk music in New Jersey. And as I was doing the research, I learned that a big part of folk tradition is sharing songs generation to generation to generation. So on Friday and Saturday nights in the village tavern, somebody would get up and sing a song from their Ireland, Scotland, England, and everybody would join in. And this was a big social aspect of the town. And dancing was very important back in those days. You had to be a good dancer if you wanted a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Very important. These very flirtatious, swing your partner dances, line dances. So that was the social scene. Something about that just struck me. I said, this is kind of interesting. I don't know. I didn't have time to pursue it then, but I took a few notes and put it aside, and I came back to it. Not really even knowing where it was going to lead. Maybe nowhere. I am not a Revolutionary War scholar. I'm an author. I mean, if you come right down to it, I'm a reporter still. I still consider myself to be a reporter. That's what I did for most of my professional life. So I wasn't sure, where is this going to go? Well, like any good reporter, you follow your sources. So I started looking at books, and I started looking at things online. I started Googling names. And lo and behold, I started coming up with all this information about taverns, why they were important. Like I said, George Washington would commandeer taverns for his temporary headquarters. That's where you would go to enlist in the militias. That's where you would go to receive if you had some family or friends coming down from New York or Philadelphia on the stagecoach, you'd go there and meet them. You would vote there, you'd get your mail there. So they were a very important part of the community. Come on in. Very informal here, we're welcome. So they were a very important part of the community. Okay, all right, that's kind of interesting, very good. Taverns were the places where the patriots and the loyalists would meet. It's kind of an old tradition, like the pubs in London, or even like moving it up a couple hundred years, the cafes in Greenwich Village. There's always these places where people gather to share ideas, the intelligentsia. They come together and they talk about politics and events. So that was part of it. All right, okay, that's getting interesting. But then I hit on it. Then I said, okay, now I got it. I learned that taverns were the places where the drama of the independence movement played out. They were the seedbeds of the revolution. Like I said, this is where the patriots gather and talk about things that were going on, discuss plans to maybe plan an uprising or a revolt. I came across a legal scholar. He had published an article in a West Coast journal, and I looked him up, and I found the article. His thesis was that these conversations in taverns were the basis for the Assembly Clause in the Constitution. All right, so now I think I'm onto something here. And he said, yeah, this is, they were. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you could go to a tavern. It was a public venue, and if you were careful, I mean, the British were all around, the soldiers. If you were careful, you could talk to your friends and pretty much discuss anything you wanted to discuss. Same with the loyalists. Now, if you were going to be hatching plans for some sort of revolt or revolution or demonstration, and you did it in some barn way out in the woods, and the British Army found out about it, they would catch you and say, aha, now you're plotting a revolution, now we got you. But if you did it at the tavern, it was a public venue, fair game. So he said, that's why I think why taverns were important back in those days. I said, well, it sounds pretty good to me. So patriots and loyalists actually shared a lot of concerns. And I found out about this from talking to historians and doing some reading. Yeah, there were all these laws that were being passed about soldiers could come into your house anytime they wanted to and eat anything they wanted to and do anything they wanted to. That was a law that came from the king way across the ocean. There were laws about taxes. There were laws about how you can conduct your business. And the loyalists said, well, we don't like this, but let's negotiate. I think we can solve this. And patriots said, no. This is tyranny, they said, tyranny. When something comes, so who is this king? Nobody's ever seen him, and he's telling us how to rule our lives. And so things were really starting to get tense. Now, when I was in school and we talked about the American Revolution, it seemed obvious that, the colonies started forming in the late 1600s, and it just seemed that it was like inevitable that sooner or later everybody was going to feel so independent, we would want to break from the British Crown. No. Up until the French and Indian War, all the colonies, including New Jersey, the colonists were proud, happy to be part of the British Crown. This was like security for them. This was like home. Everybody came to the New World to start new businesses and start a new family. Revolution would have been out of the question. Revolution, what are you talking about? We came here 20 years ago. We have a business, we have a house, we got a farm. We don't want any revolution until the 1760s, French and Indian War. And then things started to change very rapidly over about an 8 or 10 year period. Again, the friction between the colonists and the British soldiers who were occupying now, because they had an idea that something was going on. These laws and ordinance that were being passed about what they could or couldn't do, the taxes that were being imposed on them. Tyranny, they said tyranny. And there were all these little debates and arguments and heated arguments in taverns. And then 1775, Lexington and Concord, the shot heard around the world. No turning back. This was revolution. British soldiers got killed. Blood was spilled. No time for debating now. No time for sitting down and having a civil conversation. This meant war. We were now having a revolution. So the Continental Congress, they went to Philadelphia in a tavern, the City Tavern, and they said, well, we need to put together an army. They started with the Minutemen up in Boston, and who we were going to have to be the commander-in-chief, the general. They picked George Washington. I think John Adams nominated Washington. He was unanimously chosen. He was an officer in the French and Indian War. So they picked George Washington. And so from there, that's how things developed. And pretty soon there was gunfire. Pretty soon people were getting killed. And then things started really getting ugly. The Continental Army was not doing very well in the beginning. In fact, they were getting their butts kicked. And so it was up in the Fort Lee area. They had to have that was November, December, that was a famous retreat, again, through New Jersey. Famous retreat, came down, they went to, they had boats waiting for them in the Trenton area. They crossed the river. The British were kind of right behind them into Pennsylvania. And for about a month, they were hatching their plans. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna, we're like at the end of the rope. Things are not going well, we gotta do something. And so George he started sending out his messengers. They started gathering all the militias and all the members of the army that they could find. And they were getting ready for another crossing back into New Jersey. And George Washington, I don't know that he gets enough credit for being the monumental historical figure that he was and being our first president. This guy, he must have been a genius. He must have been this inspirational leader. The army, I mean, these guys were going to quit because they weren't getting paid what they were owed, their money. They were wearing rags. A lot of them didn't even have shoes, but they followed him. And so Christmas night, standing on the banks of the Delaware River on the Pennsylvania side, George Washington, he must have known. He must have known that this is it. If we fail, if we get captured or the British kill us, game over. No more revolution, no more independence. So that was the 10 critical or crucial days. Is that what they call that? I think the historians. So he had all the weight of the world on his shoulders. And fortunately, they crossed the river in the middle of a big snowstorm. They put out the word to the tavern owners, who most of them on the Delaware River, they had a ferry business. They said, please, you got to come and help us. We can't navigate across the river. You got to come help us and get across with all the ice and the snow. And they came through. And then also in that part of in that section of his army, they had the Marbleheaders who came from New England. These guys, they hunted whales. They knew how to navigate a boat. The river was nothing to them. That didn't scare them. So they met with the Hessians, Battle of Trenton. They traveled north, Battle of Princeton. And then they went up and they had their first encampment in Morristown. So, and taverns all along the way were stops where people would go and refresh themselves. And tavern owners, from what I could see, were pretty much on the side of the Patriots. So let me go through some slides here now. So here's the clicker. So that's just a little preview. Let's see. No, it's going to go this way. So, no. Let's try this. Okay. I'll go analog. Do we have any reenactors here this evening? Any reenactors? Well, I tip my hat to the reenactors, and I'll tell you why. These people, the men and women, they take this history very seriously. Yeah, they like to get dressed up in their uniforms, and everything has to be proper, the right buttons, the right belt buckles. They have the muskets. But these are the people that are keeping the history alive. This is what I call living history. Very important. This is what the next generations should know about. History is not some old book that's sitting on some dusty old shelf. History, this is living history. We are the beneficiaries. We've inherited the legacy of all that went on back in the colonial days. This was really, it sounds funny, but this was the start of the state. These were the people they were not ordinary people. Keep that in mind. They're not ordinary. They developed a system of government. They developed a system of laws, business, religion. They were farmers. They were merchants. So all that, even the roadways that they used to ride on the wagons, a lot of those roads today, Route 202, 206, they kind of follow those trails. So we've inherited all that from them. And so the reenactors are very proud, and I give them a lot of credit. This was at the Battle of Monmouth a couple of years ago. There's a park now in Monmouth County, and if you've ever been there, it's a sight to behold. This is a real military operation. There's hundreds of reenactors, the British and these are the militiamen in their frock coats, and you have hundreds of reenactors conducting operations, and the cannons are firing, and they're moving this way, and they're moving that way, and they're shooting the muskets, and all around the rim, hundreds of people, families, with their kids and their nieces and nephews, and grandparents and aunts and uncles, they're watching this and they can't believe it. It's like I'm looking at it, they're stunned. This really happened, Dad? Yeah, yes, this really happened. This was the war. It was kind of a turning point in the war too. So they take this very seriously, and I give them a lot of credit. Now, what's today? Today's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday, I'm going to go out to Hamilton, New Jersey, way out on our west coast along the Delaware River. And Hamilton is this lovely community, and every year they hold this event that's called the Skirmish. And again, what did I say? Haddonfield. Haddonfield, Haddonton.
You're in Haddonfield.
Close enough. Haddonfield, yes. Founded by Elizabeth Haddon, by the way. So every year they have the Skirmish. And again, the reenactors from all around descend upon the town. And they're shooting muskets, and they're making speeches, and they're ringing the bells, and they're drinking beer, and women are running around in their beautiful gowns. It's quite an event. And so the Indian King Tavern has invited me to be their guest that day. I've done a couple of programs for them. It's no longer a tavern, but it's now a museum. Like most of the old taverns that still exist, they don't really function as a place to buy liquor or have food. They operate, a local historical society will operate them and have events there. So this is now, although this building is actually owned by the state now. And it was in this tavern in September 1777. The war's on, and the colonial assemblymen, 40 plus men from all different walks of life. They were merchants and scholars, and they were lawyers. They were together, and they were pretty much on the run. They would have meetings, but they had to keep moving, because if the British caught them, they'd be in big trouble. So they would meet in Trenton, they'd meet in Princeton, they'd go up to New Brunswick. For some reason, they came to Hamilton. Haddonfield. Just keep correcting me. Haddonfield. So a lot of the primary source documents either exist, or we have faithful versions of them that have been transcribed. And there are minutes in their proceedings that month, and one of the ordinances that they passed, they said, from here on in, anytime there's an official document that's generated in New Jersey, we are to be known as a state, not a colony. State, not a colony. It's all right. Okay, I get it. So this place on the second floor, this is where New Jersey became New Jersey. Amazing. Right there at a tavern in Haddonfield. That time, I was going to get it right that time. And
You have to get it right Saturday.
yeah.
Tell them you're glad to be in Hamilton.
Yeah. I say, what? Who's this guy? And there's the upstairs. I mean, I don't think those benches were there at the time, but this is where it happened. This is where we became a state.
Wow.
Now, I mentioned before, dancing was very important back in the colonial period. And I love this painting. This painting was by a Dutch painter from 1668. And it's a tavern in Europe, but it must have looked the same or very close here in New Jersey. And it shows you what I have. When I do these books, I've got a challenge. First of all, I have to present an idea to the publisher. I mean, I've done 5 of them now, so I got a little track record, but it's business, so I have to present an idea to the publisher. And they ask me questions. Well, who's going to read the book? And where do you think you're going to sell it? And what's it about? And then I talk to them about it. And so then I get a contract, which I have to sign. So I've got a word count, 50,000 words, goes quick. 50,000 words goes real fast. And I have to submit 100 images for the book. And I'm always thinking like a reporter or like a newspaper editor, like laying out a front page of a newspaper. Show and tell, picture, story. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm going around taking pictures of places. How is this going to look in the book? How is this going to contribute to the narrative? These aren't college textbooks that I write. This is popular history. I don't know if is that a literary genre? I kind of made that up. Sounds good. It's popular history. I'm telling stories. I'm creating a narrative. I'm telling stories mainly about people. People, places, events, dates, yes, but mostly about people. What were they doing back in those days? How were they living? What did they eat? Where did they work? How did they go to church? These are all things that's fascinating, and it's all from the grassroots. That's what I like to write about, from the grassroots up. So I said, well, how am I gonna depict what was going on inside of a tavern? I mean, I went all around the state. I took a lot of pictures of the structures that are still standing. I'm a big believer in real history. You gotta have be able to touch it. So I knew that there were genre artists back in those days, and these were very skilled artists, and they were not interested in painting portraits of wealthy individuals or people in royalty. They weren't interested in doing lush landscapes. They wanted to paint real life, what was going on back in those days. And so it's kind of a time capsule of what went on, and you can see they're dancing. Somebody pointed out that they said, hey, the guy's got a hole in his sock. That must be his moccasins there. And there's something way up on top there. What the heck is that? And there's a little girl with her dolly. And then sometimes, you have to look at these paintings very carefully. I was doing a program once, and they said, why is there a tree growing inside a tavern? I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean a tree growing inside? Yeah, it's right there, right next to the cabinet. And I saw it. I was looking at this, but I never saw the tree, if you know what I mean. I said, I don't know. Maybe it was good luck to grow a tree inside of a tavern.
Maybe it was Christmas.
Maybe, well, yeah. And notice it's the fiddle player. The design for the guitar had not yet been formalized. The fiddle was the main instrument back in those days. Very portable, and you could play, and people could hear it. And they performed for the famous fiddle player who was down here in the Pine Barrens was Sammy Giberson. Anybody ever hear of Sammy Giberson? Legendary fiddle player from the 1850s. And Sammy was like this magic fiddle player. And he told a story about kind of like the bluesmen when late at night after midnight they go to the Crossroads and they make the deal with the devil. And then that's how they want to become a better musician. Well, that's what Sammy said. He went to the Crossroads one night in the Pine Barrens, and the devil challenged him. He said, I'm going to bring you to hell, but if you can play a song that I've never heard before, then I'm going to grant you're going to become a legendary, a magical fiddle player. And the way he told the story was a song came to his head, and he played it. And the devil said, well, Sammy, you got me. Never heard that song before. So the fiddle was very important back in those days. And this is kind of the other side of tavern life. Some kind of card game going on. Some guy's passed out on the bench. Something's going on at the front door. I don't know. She's looking at his cards. I don't know. So another scene from a tavern back in those days. Now, taverns were very important places for public venues, and they signed the Declaration of Independence, right? July 4, 1776. The first person in New Jersey to read the Declaration of Independence aloud was Colonel John Nielsen. And he did it at a tavern, the Whitehall Tavern in New Brunswick, on July 9, 1776. He read it out loud. and the loyalists came by and they were heckling him and they were threatening him. He didn't care. And he read it and everybody applauded. They were all, the loyalists were all shouted down. So this was his statement. He was a heroic figure during the Revolutionary War. So, do we have any Daughters of the American Revolution here tonight? Again, I tip my hat to them. They also keep the living history alive. So in 2017, the DAR in New Brunswick organized this event. They found all of John Nielsen's, or most of them anyway, his descendants. And they gathered around the statue and they had this celebration to commemorate the fact that he was the first guy to read the Declaration of Independence out loud in New Jersey. Nice statue, by the way.
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton, right? Broadway star. Everybody knows him. He spent a lot of time in New Jersey. He was part of that retreat and then back across the river, the 10 Crucial Days. He's got some Jersey roots. And I did some research on him. And he studied at a prep school in Elizabeth, or Elizabethtown as it was known back in those days. The Snyder Academy of Elizabethtown, 1772. That's where he was a genius. The guy was amazing. Why did he have to do that stupid duel? And at the time, he was living with William Livingston, who sort of was like his mentor, first governor of New Jersey. So yeah, Alexander Hamilton, he's got some Jersey street cred for sure. Now, Thomas Paine. At the time, in those middle years of the 1700s, he was a legendary figure. He was the world's most famous author and philosopher and political scientist. He spent a lot of time in New Jersey. His haunt was in Bordentown. He went to the Washington Tavern and he would hold court there and he would get into arguments. He liked to do that. He met up with Benjamin Franklin when Ben Franklin was our ambassador in London in 1774. And they hit it off. Of course, they met at a tavern, and they hit it off. And Ben Franklin finally came to the realization. They said, look, Thomas, you should take the boat over to the colonies. They need you there. And sure enough, they did. He was on that march, the Great Retreat, and as he was marching, he was writing his famous American Crisis. These are the times that try men's souls. And if you read the thing, or parts of it anyway, he's writing about New Jersey. He's writing about Perth Amboy, and he's writing about, he was in Newark, where he was writing they had stopped in Newark for a couple days. He talked about, if only a Jersey maid would come down from heavens and help us in our great quest for independence. So he's, I don't know, he's kind of fallen on hard times, his legacy and memory. A lot of historians don't like the guy. But major figure. A lot of his ideas became part of the conversation with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. He was a big believer in this idea of separation of church and state. The government should be represented by the people, not by some king, not by some bishop. That's what he believed in, and that was a radical concept. Well, all through Europe, they were all monarchies, right? He thought that people should be able to govern themselves. Radical concept. Amazing. Yes, sir.
Sir, where is this statue?
That's in Bordentown.
I see.
And I know of one other statue. It's right outside of Morristown. And that statue, he's sitting there and he's writing his American Crisis on the skin of a drum. That's the legend.
Yeah.
But there's a Thomas Paine Society in Connecticut, and I got some information from them. And I said, we got a couple of Thomas Paine statues here. Which one do you like? He said, the one in Bordentown. That's the best one. Okay, take their word for it. So, yeah. He spent lots of time in New Jersey. Laird's, the oldest distillery in the United States, in Scoobyville, New Jersey. William Laird was a Scotsman. He was escaping religious persecution. He came to New Jersey in 1698 and started the distillery. He was doing stuff throughout those years, but the first written records of business that they have were 1780. So that's kind of the official start of the distillery. And I talked to the people, of course they wouldn't let me inside. I would see all their secret processes, but they're very nice. And one of their famous drinks was Jersey Lightning. There's apple cider and there's apple brandy. Brandy is kind of a condensed version of apple cider. I don't drink the stuff, to tell you the truth. I might like to try it one of these days, but
They still make it?
yeah, oh yeah, this is, I mean, they got it at the liquor store. You can go there and find it.
I've heard of it.
Scoobyville is right near, you know where Delicious Orchards is in New Jersey? You know where Freehold is?
Oh, yeah.
Right in that area, yeah. It's off the highway and there's that big sign. And I couldn't get inside to take pictures, so I figured I'd take a picture of the sign, you know. Close enough.
They did a show on TV not too long ago about it,
Really?
and Joanne and I went out and bought a bottle. Drinking stuff.
Well, apparently,
Strong.
people,
It sounds strong.
they're very strong. People, everybody want, everybody drank alcoholic beverages back in those days. Apple cider, because if you drank the water, you got sick. They didn't quite figure out that to make rum or cider, you'd have to boil it and distill it. That would kill all the bacteria.
Right.
They didn't quite figure that out, but eventually they did. So the most popular drinks back in those days were rum. That was the favorite. That was the everyman drink. And rum was a big part not only of tavern life and tavern business, but also the economics of the colonial period. London, Barbados, where the sugar plantations were, and then up to they would make the molasses and bring it up to Perth Amboy. So rum was a big part of our economic system at the time. And there's a rum, and then apple cider, and then if you wanted to, you drink apple brandy, which is a bigger kick. And then beer. I came across a guy, the first brewer of beer, at least according to my research, was a Dutchman by the name of Aert van Putten. And he had a plantation in Hoboken and a brewery there, and he brewed beer. The first tavern owner, again, at least what I can tell from my research, another Scotsman, Henry Lyon, Lyon. And he was, I guess he must have been well-to-do. First he came to New Haven, Connecticut, and then he heard about all sorts of interesting things that were going on in Newark in the 1660s. He came to Newark, became the town treasurer, and he had some political motivations. And there are documents, there are the minutes of the town meetings that they had in Newark, and they said, as soon as possible, Mr. Lyon is to be our first tavern keeper, or ordinary keeper. The ordinaries, taverns, pubs, they kind of all meant different things to different people. So he was probably our first tavern owner in Newark, 1668. So first guy to brew beer, first guy to have a tavern. Now there still are some structures still standing, like I mentioned before. Most of them they're meeting houses or museums, usually run by a historical society. This is one that actually is still a tavern and a restaurant. This is the Black Horse Tavern in Mendham, which is just a little west of Morristown. And it was founded in the 1740s by Mr. Ebenezer Byram, and still operating. They did take a lot of the stuff from the inside out, and they got rid of it. I don't know why they did that, but they did. So that's still working. This is the Allen House Tavern in Shrewsbury. There's a historic four corners in Shrewsbury. There's a meeting house, there's a tavern, there's a cemetery, there's the church. They're all from that 1740 period. And the Allen House Tavern kind of had a very troubled past. This is where there was the Allentown Massacre, as it was called, the Allen House Massacre. And British troops found out that there were colonial soldiers staying in the tavern, and they surprised them, and they killed a bunch of them and took some hostage. So that's its, if you want to say its claim to fame, but not much of a claim to fame. This was George Washington's headquarters in Morristown, in that first encampment. This was the Arnold Tavern. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. But this is where he stayed. It was right around the Morristown Green, if you've ever been to Morristown. And I think this is where Alexander Hamilton and Elizabeth Schuyler, or whatever her name was, I think that's where they kind of, like, little chemistry between them. They caught each other's eye. I think that's where it happened. This place, they tried to save it. There was this big, in the 70s and 1980s, there was this big urban renewal period in Morristown. And they got rid of a lot of their historic structures. You can't save everything. I know that. But they tried to save it. They got a committee together, and a woman who was very rich, they moved it, and then eventually they built a hospital called All Souls Hospital. But in the early 1900s, there was this big blaze of fire, and the whole thing burned down. So, I mean, can you imagine if it was still around? What a treasure that would be. That's Washington's headquarters. This is a drawing that the nice people at the Morristown Library gave to me. This is a tavern, which is in Bridgeton, Cumberland County, down sort of on the other side. It's not far from here, I guess. I talk about a gathering of the intelligentsia. Potter's Tavern in Bridgeton at the time, in the mid-1700s, basically was being occupied by the British. But now these scholarly revolutionaries, including two future governors of New Jersey, Joseph Bloomfield and Richard Howell, they wanted to make sure everybody knew, including the British, that they were not happy with the situation. So at Potter's Tavern, I guess they didn't care, they were brave. They were posting these, kind of like a broadsheet newspaper, and they called it the Plain Dealer. And there were a number of different editions that they put up on the wall. And let me read you one here. This is, these people were putting their lives on the line. This was not fun and games. This was serious business back in those days. I mean, just think if you got killed or captured, you would lose everything. Everything. Your family would be ruined. So there were 8 editions of the Plain Dealer that were hung on the wall at Potter's Tavern. And actually, my alma mater, Montclair State, has the original documents. I just by chance learned that, and so I called the library, and they gave me high-resolution digital images. So this was the one that was really told it like it was. February 5th, 1776. Arouse my countrymen. We must not, I can't read this here. Must not every son of the liberty, both here and in Great Britain, abhor and despise that stubborn, hard-headed Pharaoh, King George. Pharaoh, whoa, these are fighting words. Who disgraces a crown he was never worthy of, by giving sanction to such acts of injustice and barbarity. Arouse, my countrymen. Let us draw our swords and never return them into their scabbards till we have rescued our country from this iron hand of the tyrant and secure the pure enjoyment of liberty for generations to come. Well, he didn't mince words. Now what were the British soldiers and lawyers? What were they thinking of? There was a courthouse right across from the tavern, and they were reading this and like, who is this guy? What is this? What is he talking about here?
Can you tell me where that's located in Bridgeton?
I don't know the street.
You know?
West Broad Street.
Oh, you
Oh,
know?
all right.
West Broad.
There's a nice historical society there,
Yeah.
and they I found out about the police just by accident. A lot of this stuff is just by accident that I find. And so I went to the historical society and said, "Hey, you got a nice picture of Potter's Tavern?" As a matter of fact, we do. Okay, can you send me a high resolution image? Yeah, we can do that.
Christmas story.
Yeah,
It was on the Christmas
yeah.
story.
Oh, that's nice.
This is a tavern. It's in Gloucester County. And I came across a tavern from the 1740s. And there was a fox hunting club in Philadelphia. They would come to New Jersey and they would pursue their sport, fox hunting. And then they would go to their own special tavern, the Death of the Fox Tavern.
Oh, Lord.
Now, a name like that,
That's real lovely.
I said, I got to find out about this
Yeah,
place.
really.
I just can't let this go. I mean, so I started, did some Googling and did some writing and researching and read some books. And I found out that the place was still standing. And I Googled the address and the name of the people who lived there, and their phone number was on the internet. So I figured, well, what do I got to lose? I've been a reporter all my life. People have been hanging up on me for 40 years.
Right,
I don't care.
No.
I don't care. But the people, they couldn't have been nicer. Oh, thank you for being so interested in our lovely home. We always wanted a historic home, and they were telling me all about it. And they have 5 fireplaces, and they said that when they bought it, it was covered in stucco. They had to take down the stucco, and this beautiful fieldstone structure. And the man said, "Gee, would you like some pictures of the place?" Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I would really like some pictures, because otherwise I'm gonna have to drive all the way down there and take my own pictures. So he was nice enough to send me some high resolution images, and very nice. So that's Death of the Fox.
Where is that located?
It's, I forget the name of the town in Gloucester.
Mickleton?
Woodbury, Clarksboro, I think?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Field trip.
It's in the book. I can't remember. I have to go back and read it.
Buy the book.
Yeah, buy the book. I have to, when I do these talks, I have to go back and read the book and say, now what did I write about here? And this is, it's 2 years ago. There's George. Great statue of him in the Morristown Green. And he's there with Alexander Hamilton and the French general. And this was to celebrate the meeting that was held there when the French came and said, yes, we are going to support you in your cause for liberty. And it's on the green. It's a great statue. A couple of thoughts about the Revolutionary War. I was talking to some local historians. They said, the Revolutionary War was a civil war. I said, oh, what do you mean? They said, well, like in the famous Civil War of the 1860s, it was neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother. People had very strong feelings about this idea of revolution and independence. And there were lines that were not supposed to be crossed. So in a lot of ways, it was, and there were spies all around. If you were, depending on which side you're on, you would spy for the British Army. You'd spy for the Continental Army. Oh, the troops are moving here along the river. Oh, they're storing their ammunition at this barn way out in the woods. And so that was going on. And then I talked to another historian. He said, well, you know, the Revolutionary War was really a world war. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, just think about it. When the war was going on, you had the Native Americans, the indigenous people, you had people up in Canada, you had the colonies, you had Great Britain, you had the French, you had the Spanish, you had the Swedes, you had the Dutch. They were all vying for pieces of...
And the Hessians.
And the Hessians,
Yeah,
yeah,
oh,
they were
yeah.
mercenaries.
Yeah.
They all wanted a piece of the action here, and they were all looking to make money too. And so that's how, I mean, this started. We started like these were like, you know, these so-called villages started as trading posts. They were trading, you know, beaver skins and things like that. And so he said, yeah, it was a world war. I said, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. And there's George.
Yep.
What a guy. What a guy. He,
Wasn't he of Scottish?
I don't
I
know.
think he was.
I don't know. His parents were born in England, but he was born here in the country.
Right.
I don't know what his ancestral roots were. Now here's George. He's a big fan of my book. George and I were classmates at Montclair State, and this was at an event at the Dye Mansion in Wayne, up in my neck of the woods. And of course, there's all the Revolutionary War reenactors were there, and George Washington was inside the Dye Mansion. Thunis Dye was a very wealthy landowner, and he had George Washington stay at his house during the 1780s. That was his headquarters for a number of months. So George Washington was there, and he said, hey, let me see that book. I said, okay. I said, General Washington, can I take your picture? He said, sure, go right ahead. So I posted this online. That's my one attempt at being funny. A little levity to break the tension here. Oh, so now we're
Francis Tavern.
Francis Tavern,
Where would that be?
1783. The war is over. We're signing the Treaty of Paris. We won. We defeated the most powerful army in the whole world. It's a miracle. How did they do it? I don't know. It boggles the mind to think that George Washington could prevail. And so December 1783, he was about to end his commission as commander-in-chief, and he called all his top generals together at Francis Tavern in Lower Manhattan, right in the financial district. I think it's on Water Street. And on the second floor, they had this big reception. And they were all there, and they were making toasts, and they were making speeches, and people were crying, and George Washington said, without you men and your dedication and bravery, we could have never prevailed in this great experiment that we've done. So thank you very much. So this went on all afternoon. That he and his entourage came downstairs, took the ferry boat over to Jersey City, or Pavonia, as it was called at the time. And he started his trek down through New Jersey. He was going to Annapolis to end his commission. There are paintings of this that you can find online. And so he went there, he handed in his sword. He said, this has been the honor of my lifetime. We've prevailed. I'm very happy. Thank you very much. And goodbye.
Right.
No. He went back down to his farm, but now we've got our independence. Now what's going to happen? Well, are we going to be an empire? Are we going to be a monarchy? What are we going to be? So the 100-day argument in Philadelphia took place, where they hammered out the Constitution, right? Nowadays everything is according to the Constitution, the founding fathers, what they believed in, the three branches of government. So he invited George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were like the two superstars of the Revolutionary War. They were there, they presided, and they were the honorary position. So they came up with a constitution. You remember the Ken Burns documentary about Ben Franklin. They finally finished, and he came outside and they said, okay, Mr. Franklin, so what are we? He said, what did he say? A republic if you can keep it, or something like that. All right, so we're a republic. No, we don't want a king. No, we don't want an emperor. We want a president. Who's going to be president? I know, George Washington. But George was very reluctant. He said, no, I want to go back to my... No, George was president 2 terms, and he said, thank you. 2 terms is enough. Now it's time for somebody else to take over, pass the torch, because he knew that power, too much concentrated power over a long period of time, corrupts. He was a smart guy. He was a genius. Our greatest president? Yeah, he's got my vote. I'd have to say, got my vote. So, and the on the side of the building, there's the plaque, and it mentions the date, December 4, 1783, when George made an emotional farewell to the officers at a banquet held in the long room on the 2nd floor of Francis Tavern. And I was thinking about this. The Sons of Liberty, they basically maintain the tavern, and they put this plaque up there. I'm thinking, there were colonial newspapers during that period. Most of them were on the side of Britain, but there were a few patriot newspapers. They were printing newspapers. December 4, 1783, I called the Library of Congress. I said, by any chance, do you have a newspaper from December 4, 1783? Why, yes, we do actually. Oh, can you create a PDF and email that to me? I think we can, yeah. So there, and it was a loyalist newspaper, and it made the front page. George Washington and his band of troublemakers, they're celebrating now at our expense, and it's kind of funny to read, but so they covered the event. It's documented. So let's see now. Is that okay? So that's pretty much where my book ends and where my talk ends tonight. But I would certainly be happy to entertain any discussion or questions. I felt like this was an important topic that had to be written about from the perspective of tavern. For me, I thought of the tavern. You always have to have an angle when you're in journalism. You got to know how are you going to tell the story. Well, to me, the tavern was a window into that grassroots life. Again, like what were people? It's the silly question is what did people have for breakfast in the 1700s? Like it's a dopey question, but that's the idea. Like what's all the minutia? What's going on back in those days? So that's how I pursued it. The taverns really they were a reflection of life back in those days. And the tavern keepers, women and men, a lot of women tavern keepers back in those days, they were the information source for the village. You went there, yes, you went there to drink and socialize and get something to eat, but you also went there to find out what was going on, especially in 1773, 4 or 5. What was happening? Well, the tavern keeper was a respected member of the community, trusted. And so he knew all the people in his village, but he also knew when there were travelers coming through, strangers coming through. And when that happened, he recognized them and said, "Oh, hello, sir. What's your name?" I said, "My name is John Smith." "Oh, Mr. Smith. And where are you from, Mr. Smith?" "I'm from Connecticut." "I see. And tell me, what's going on in Connecticut these days?" "Well, did you hear about the big problem we had with the British Army?" "No, I didn't hear about that. Can you tell me about it?" And so, gathering all this oral history, that the taverns were like an internet portal. They were the website for the village, and they had all this information. It was distributed. I'm sure the tales became much more colossal and colorful after 3 or 4 glasses of rum. And even still, that was another big part of they were the big communicators for the villages, and lots of women tavern keepers. But in those days, if you were a single woman, you could have your own business, you could have your own money, you could own property. There were a couple of years there where you could vote, but if you got married, the husband took everything. Everything. Honey, you've done a great job, but now go sit over here. I'm going to take over, and you're. It's not good. So, anyway, so now I saw some questions. Yes,
Franklinville Inn. was-
I've heard of it.
Yes, it's right down the road.
Okay,
On Harding Highway, Route 40, is it, folks?
It's Route 40.
Route 40.
is that a
thank you.
Colonial Tavern?
I don't know, but I love the food there.
Okay.
It's quite expensive, though.
You know, I did a couple of books about the history of the diner business in New Jersey.
I saw that.
I always bring,
yeah.
because everybody always asks for them. And, you know, people say, you've been to every diner in New Jersey? No. What are you kidding?
The other one was, it's now a Dunkin' Donut, which I think is a shame. Harding Highway and Route 40, Buena Vista Township.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name. I'm a transplant, you could tell from my accent, but. Do you remember?
Midway Tavern.
Midway Tavern, thank
See,
you.
you know, I mean, of course, I have
Just to, I don't know if it's
I have
in your
been
book.
to all these, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know about all the taverns,
Right.
but, yeah, I can't document, there was like
No, of course,
400
there's
taverns
many.
back in the 1780s.
And
But
where's
there are
the
tax
other
records
one?
that show where the taverns were, but I'm trying, again, I'm telling stories, I'm trying to capture the spirit
Sure.
of the
Just curious, I
Yeah.
was just curious, because I never got to eat in that one. I wanted to. It was closed when I got here.
yes, sir, in the back.
In 1994, I got here.
As
It was,
far as the tavern being a place for people to get together and talk and communicate, was that supplanted by the diner?
You know,
And I'm thinking of diners in like the 50s and 60s and 70s when they really were,
yeah,
and I actually been to recently, you know, in the last like 5 days, where like the neighborhood would come to a diner type
Yeah.
of place.
you know,
As opposed to going to a bar, which
Right.
we don't really think of as.
right. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of these books, and this is how people, most people know. But you know, the tavern book has been pretty popular the last 2 years. That's where all my invitations now to do these talks are about the tavern book. But yeah, I didn't really make a big deal about it, but I wanted to kind of keep the two separate. It's this, you know, this idea of the place where you go to meet friends and go there with your families. You know, the diners, they're the, what's a real New Jersey diner? It's the place where you go and you make memories. It's where you went on your first date. That's where your uncle took you to his favorite diner when he went down the shore. That's where you went when you had your first car and you wanted to go somewhere. You went to the diner. So that's the idea. And it's again, it's a place where people meet and share ideas. Greenwich Village in the late 1950s, same thing.
yeah.
All these, I don't know what, there's something about history where all these amazing people come together in one place in one time. Florence, you know, during the 1500s, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. How did that happen? How did they all come together at these places and share ideas? I don't know. It's like it's amazing. Yes, sir.
Michael, I was just wondering, in that restoration period in England,
Uh-huh.
1660 into the 18th century, the coffee house started.
Yes.
The discussion.
Yes.
Magazine, rags.
Yes.
Could that be, are these taverns kind of a spin-off of that in America? Is that the
Um,
American form of the coffee house?
There was the coffee house and there was the pub. So
Sure.
I try to, you can easily go off on tangents. I tried to keep
Okay.
focused on the taverns. But the coffee house, again, yes, this, place where people would gather and talk. I think, that's, Ben Franklin spent a lot of time at coffee houses. And when coffee was first introduced, it was actually kind of controversial. Like people decided that you're brewing coffee. They said, well, we have to maintain our sobriety. This is not, you can't brew. Well, people liked coffee, so they wanted to drink coffee. Yeah, but I found online where there's a place in London, they claim they're the first coffee house in London. And so, coffee came from the Middle East, and it kind of gravitated up through Europe.
Thank you.
Yeah, the coffee house. Yes, sir.
The Smithville around here.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind
Yes.
of commercialized, but there's stories that go back that it was a popular tavern traveling from New York to the shore.
I'm sure.
You
I
have
think a
any
lot of
knowledge
them
about-
around here were stagecoach stops.
Stagecoach
Right,
stops, yeah.
yeah.
Now,
That's what the Franklinville was.
yeah,
That
well,
was-
like I
Do you
said,
have any knowledge about Smithville?
I think there's 2 Smithvilles, right, in New Jersey?
Yeah, there are.
Probably.
Yeah, my first book for the History Press was a book about the golden age of bicycle racing in New Jersey. That was the first book.
Wow.
And believe it or not, New Jersey was the world center for the best professional bike racers in the world back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. You came to race at the legendary Newark Velodrome. Cycling was a spectator sport. There would be bike races, all different events, Wednesday nights and Sunday afternoons. And so I talked to this really nice man. He was so helpful. And in one of those Smithvilles, they made the American Star bicycle.
Guess where that was invented?
Where?
Hamilton.
All right.
Oh,
No,
really?
you mean Haddonfield.
George Washington Pressey, at the end of
Pressey.
Central Avenue, basically,
Yeah.
invented the American Star bicycle, which kicked the Columbia penny farthings butt.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an incredible machine.
Yeah. They turned it around, right?
Yeah.
The small wheel was in front, the big
Yeah.
one was in the
Right,
back.
right. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I know about the one Smithville. In fact, I called the other one time.
Yeah.
They said, no, you want the other place. I said, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
Smithville actually took over production for the American Star.
Yeah.
And ended up not paying. It made little changes, and basically George Pressey over time kind of got screwed on that deal. They didn't pay him all the royalties, but there's a beautiful example of one of the American Stars at the other Smithville place right now. It's
And they
really
made
something to
they
see.
made furniture there too. I read.
Up there. Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah. So
It was quite a settlement.
manufacturing in New Jersey. I mean, there it is. So yes, sir, in the back.
What was it, the kind of bicycle that went on the rail?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that was
right
it.
through
That
through
was it.
Mount Holly, the woods. They
Yeah.
had that. I read about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
There's an example of that.
That's
at
really
at
cool.
the same place.
Yeah, that's how people commuted to work.
Two comments. One, the Franklin Inn in Port Republic
Yes.
was frequented, and I was telling you that beginning of the program. William Franklin, it's named after William Franklin, because he's the last royal governor of New
Right.
Jersey.
Right.
And he used to stop there. It was a very popular place. Later on, it was owned by Fred and Ethel Noyes, who owned Smithville. And actually,
That's a famous
rebuilt
name.
Smithville,
Noyes.
made it the great place it is.
Yeah.
The other comment, the Indian Cabin Mill Inn,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
Columbia Road in Nesco,
Uh,
is the place where Joe Mulliner was captured one night after a lot of dancing.
that was in the folk music book. Yeah.
And he was called the Robin Hood of the Pine.
That's right. He was a scoundrel.
He was a
Was he?
loyalist.
Yeah.
They supposedly he stole from the rich. He didn't really give it to the poor though.
Well, that's not a Robin
They
Hood.
caught him there in 1781 and he was executed in Burlington.
You know.
Oh, wow.
I found a British publication from that period, and they wrote about him.
The other
Really?
thing I wanted to mention, are you familiar with Revolution New Jersey, which is the
Yeah.
state agency?
That's right.
They are doing something called Tavern Talks in conjunction with
Yeah.
the Garden State Brewery Association.
Oh, boy.
It's a smart marketing move, I think. The Brewery Association was relatively new. And in collaboration with Revolution New Jersey, they're gonna have 6 actors representing maybe a loyalist, a patriot, different personages from that
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And what happens is, and they've done it in a couple of places, they did it in Asbury Park, and there's a number of taverns that have already done this. You go there, and I don't know, it's probably gonna be 25 hours or something like that, but you go there, and you will mix and mingle with these 6 colonial era
Yeah.
actors. And we are trying, with the Atlantic County Historical Society, trying to get There's I think it's called the Garden State Brewery. It's in Absecon, used to be Delaredo's, for those who are familiar with the area. And we're working with them to see if we can get this set up sometime, probably early in next year.
Yeah.
And, you know, tavern talks, I mean, it's just what you're talking about, that it was a really part of the lifeblood of the revolution.
I would, if you can do it, it's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
I got invited to one. It's just kind of started not that long ago.
Yeah.
I went to one in Newark, and I wasn't exactly sure what it was. I said, well, you know, they invited me. I said, well, do you want me to talk about my book? He said, no, you just be there. I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, it's history it's like speed dating on history. Each table has a reenactor, and you move from table to table, and you order drinks, and okay, now I'm going to talk about this, and it was a lively scene. Everybody was having a great time. So, yeah.
Well, if we get it set up, and when we get it set up, we'll certainly share it with the Hamilton Historic Society and anybody else who's interested.
Yeah.
I'll share it with the Haddonfield people.
Well, you know, it's heartwarming that people turn out for these things. Which, you know, the people of all ages, and it shows that people have an interest. You know, maybe they're not reading newspapers anymore, but they're still reading books, which I'm very happy about. And they have an interest in history. You know, New Jersey people are very smart. We're proud of our history. They kind of realize all the things that's gone on here over the years. So I think it's great. I think it's wonderful that they're doing that. You should really try to pursue it. It'd be a lot of fun. You would enjoy it. So, anyone else that has a yes?
It's a little bit off topic, but you mentioned Elizabeth Haddon from Haddonfield. Do you know much about her?
I know a little bit. It's in the book. Her father purchased property, I think from William Penn, maybe? And it was in that part of, you know, on the west coast of New Jersey. It was like a plantation, and he wanted to have a farm there. But at the time, he was very elderly. And he said, you know, I don't think he had any sons. He said, Elizabeth, she was like 20-something. He said, you know, Elizabeth, you take the boat over to the colonies, and you start my plantation. She said, well, okay. So this young woman, she takes the boat, she lands in Philadelphia, takes the boat across the river, and she goes to that property where her father owned, which today is Haddonfield. And I always think cinematically, like she gets off the stagecoach and she's standing there, and there's woods and there's swamps and she's saying, oh my God, what the heck did I get myself into? But she's a young woman, 20-something. Somehow she must have been very skilled in networking. She got the Native American people to help her. She got the local people who were around that area, got the Quakers to help her. And she basically founded the community. And she married a man who was a preacher. And they were married for a number of years. And he died. He went down to do some sort of work down in the West Indies, and he died unexpectedly. So she was alone. But there's a bit of book written about her, and I have a little bit about her in my book. So again, amazing figure from that period. Now here's my complaint. I'm going to go to Haddonfield. Did I say it right that time?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Haddonfield on Saturday, right, for this skirmish. I've been there a couple times. And so it's this beautiful community, and there's statues all around town. Where's the statue of Elizabeth Haddon? I went there last. Get the mayor on the phone. What is this? Well, you know, we don't really know what she looked like. I mean, give me a break, you know. You want to know what she must have looked like? In fact, I Googled it. I said, young women from England in 1724. Well, there's all these portraits of young women. She must have looked something like that. So come on.
No pictures.
Statue. Where's the statue of Elizabeth Haddon?
Yeah.
Get out of here, you know. Well, I'm gonna pipe up again about it. Probably don't want to hear it, but I don't care. Like, you know, give credit where credit's due, I always say. So, yeah. So Elizabeth Haddon, yeah, she was something else. So, well,
Very good.
you've been a lovely audience. Thank you very much. I do have some books here for sale. And thank you for inviting me down. I love this part of New Jersey. And